Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the Chief Family Officer podcast. I'm really excited to share this episode with you. It is with Michael Perry, the CEO of Maple. Now, if you haven't heard of Maple before and you're a parent with a busy life, you're going to want to check out Maple on the iPhone App Store, or if you're an Android, they're on the App Store there as well. It is our family's go-to platform for managing our chaos. But this conversation is so much more than just a discussion about the Maple technology and the product they've brought to this world to help ambitious parents manage their life. This is one of my favorite conversations with Michael about how he thinks about leading at home. And for me, what I really took away from this conversation was the sense of urgency that Michael brings to the opportunity of being a parent. I hope you enjoy this conversation just as much as I did. We start by just jumping in with a quick catch up on how things are going day to day, and you'll see this conversation take root in place from there. Enjoy. I'm just being honest with you. It's been
Hard.
a hard week. It's been a hard, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're human. I mean, I find every week to be a hard week. So I just think that different challenges present themselves. There's a spectrum of hard. Some things are harder than other things. Um, I don't know. Maybe hard is actually just the new normal, and it's just having the skills to navigate hard. Not asking for easy, but just knowing how to handle hard.
No
Is
doubt.
some separating piece of life. So,
I like that. I like that. I'm sure you've been a student of this idea of being anti-fragile, whether it's like as a team or as an individual, right? And using these stresses or these difficulties and what seems like this chronic difficulty state as a way for actually improving our system, and just recognizing that there's fragile and robust, but robust is not the opposite of fragile. Anti-fragile is like something that actually evolves positively from the stress that it goes through. And I think it's an interesting perspective to hold, especially when there's so much consistency in said struggle, right?
well, I think we all break. I mean, you can be as anti-fragile as you like, but I actually think it's more so like, at least for me, I can only speak for me, but like I'm very well aware that my threshold is incredibly high, that I will break. Um, and so it's just like protecting that threshold and knowing what the rhythm of life needs to be, or when I need to pull back, so that I can support sometimes pushing past that line, or redlining, pushing up to the line. But we will all break. I think that that's a really actual important thing to understand, is that no one can escape it. It's just knowing your limits and what your body and your mind needs so that you don't overheat, you know?
Hmm.
And I oftentimes think that, we've done so much as a society to like, I don't know, even the things I read online, it's just so crazy. Like, I think you can have an insane work ethic and like invest all the time in the world. But you always have to understand at what cost. And you also have to, like, I think, want to afford yourself um like longevity. Like, sure, you won't break for a day, but can you keep doing this for weeks, for months, for years?
Yeah, how
What marathon
sustainable
are
is
you
it?
running? How sustainable is it? So being fragile or anti-fragile, there's other variables that come into play, which is like duration. You put a lot of pressure on something for a long period of time. I mean, even bridges collapse. Things need to be retrofitted. Like, investments need to be made for the strongest of things to still stand tall. So I think it's actually having a healthier conversation. I don't take an anti-fragile approach. I take a marathon investment approach on like, how much weight can my shoulders carry, for how long, for how far, you know? I know I can carry it, but like, at what point does the weight just crush me?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I can put a lot of weight on my shoulders for one day. Come and talk to me about a lot of weight on your shoulders for 1 year, 5 years, 10
yeah.
years, 15 years. And for some people, it's one week. At 1 week, they're like, I need a break. Someone else needs to carry this weight. And that's okay. And I think it's just like having more healthier takes on like some people can carry different volumes of weight longer, but if without reinforcing, re-strengthening, reconditioning, without sometimes having someone spot you on the bench, everyone sometimes gets stuck.
Hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things that really stood out to me when we connected last was this conversation we started to have that you brought to the forefront around greed. Where are you greedy?
Hmm.
And how this sentiment of being greedy, and I think for many, there's this preconceived notion that we shouldn't be greedy about things. I loved how you were really provocative in being really clear on what is it that you're greedy for.
Yeah.
And you've been on an interesting arc where when you were at Shopify before, what you were greedy for perhaps has changed. It certainly has for me over my life, especially now
Yeah.
having kids. Was there a point where, speaking of breaking, that that breaking was a part of your process of recapitulating what you were greedy for? Or did that happen just kind of organically through the process of having a family and the evolution of what mattered to you, just rolling with that?
I don't think that I broke. I think that like my value system changed. And I think that at some point in your life, um, depending on where you're at in your professional journey or where you're at in terms of financial stability and also where you're at in terms of how you make money, you learn kind of quickly you can lose a lot of money in one day, you can make a lot of money in one day, and that's going to kind of be kind of a constant. Like it's kind of just going to keep going like this. you know your children don't go like this, they just kind of go like this. Time is linear in terms of their own journey in terms of your relationship with them. You know, they're going to go from, as you know, early in our conversation, they go from 5 days to 5 months to 5 years to 15 to 25. And it just happens like at this clip. I read somewhere one time, actually recently, this study that you kind of age uh, in two big pockets in terms of like your how you look like aging um, at 44 and 66, and they now have these
Mhm.
incredible benchmarks about like when there is a particular door that closes in terms of how your cells change. And it's crazy that you can run hard as you want up until that point, and then there's just no going back. You're going to look different after 44, you're going to look different after 66, you're going to look different at 88. And I think what's harder is taking a step back and recognizing and understanding and appreciating that there we don't have the data point because every child is different, but that relationship with your child also is a door that continues to close and another one
Mm,
opens and closes and another one opens, and you don't get to unwind. You just don't get to unwind. I just believe, and I've been an entrepreneur a long time. This won't be my last company. The last company wasn't my last company. The next company won't be my last company. But this will be my last year of having a 5-year-old son.
right, right.
It's the last year of my son he turns 6 next month. My youngest son is 3, turning 4 in August. Next year, my relationship with both of them will look completely different. And what they need me for will look completely different. And the dynamic of our household will look completely different. And I'm just trying to savor like every single second because I won't get to open that door again. It seals shut. It just doesn't reopen. And I just think that a lot of people frantically are running around because being in your 30s and your 40s is crazy. It's the hardest 20-year stretch of your life because for the first time you are carrying that weight. You are having to
Right.
try to be anti-fragile. You're carrying a mortgage. You're carrying, for some people, tuition. You're trying to figure out how to put food on the table. You're trying to figure out how to get your kids developed and in sports and activities. And you're stressed about their friend group. And you're stressed about whether they're drinking, are they doing drugs, are they smoking cigarettes. Like you have this whole new realm of stress about somebody else for a 20-year stretch. And you're also balancing that with like making money, building your career, maintaining your marriage. Like it's just such an absurd marathon for that 20-year stretch. And I have just come to accept the fact that I'm going to let a lot of those things go.
Mm.
I'm going to intentionally let go my focus on all of those buckets. And I'm going to purely focus on my time with my children. Not because I don't have those other responsibilities. It's about where I'm intentionally placing my focus in terms of my deep presence, my deep meaningful moments is in the presence of my children, because when they grow up and they're gone, some of those stresses will just still be sitting there. I'm not going to let any of these things deprive me of enjoying my children. And that to me, I feel like, I think when you talk about my 20s and in my early 30s, I was willing to put work in front of everything. And I was willing to deprive myself of friends, trips, deprive myself of leisurely things, deprive myself of social activity. All I cared about was work, and I became a machine. I think I'm just taking that same exact model because I recognized when I was in my 20s and early 30s, there was a tiny window there. I had no kids, I had no responsibility, I had to build this business, I had to climb from where I was starting. Like that was a window that I wanted to close. I wanted to push myself through it and go on to the next chapter.
Hmm.
You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Now
I
I'm just
do.
flipping that to be like, my window, I have a tiny window with my kids, and that window is going to close. And so I'm willing to deprive myself of focusing on these other things. I don't need to be focusing on these other things. They're going to be there. Just like when I was in my 20s, I'm like, someday I'll be able to go. I'm not going to take the spring break trip right now because I'll go to Italy in my 40s. It will be there. Those countries will be there still, you know?
I do. And I really like how you drawn and illustrated the parallel between that emerging research. And it's great research. My wife was sharing that with me. She's a naturopathic doctor and works a lot with women who are in that midlife moment of looking at aging. And it's quite amazing to learn that we go through these bursts and episodes of aging
Right.
that happen so rapidly. And to your point, like that door closing, that finite time you have to ready yourself for that moment. What I've really just I'm always inspired by you is how ferocious your intensity is to live every day as if the door's closing tonight when you go to bed. Like I sense that when you talk about your kids and the urgency around that. It's like, yes, this is the last year that I might have a 5-year old, but today's the last day I'm going to have this 5-year old at this particular moment. I can really sense
Son,
that. And the idea of consequences, I find is so often talked about as a negative outcome. It's like, oh, if we make this choice, here's the consequence of that. And even parenting, it's here are your consequences for your behavior. But there are a lot of really great positive consequences to allowing those other things to not be as important and to not be such a big priority, be it the trip that you had mentioned, right? Or focusing on work as much as you are in this moment. There are really positive consequences to that as a result of it.
consequence is such a fucking awful word.
Mhm.
Because when I think of consequences, I think of like there's punishments,
Mhm.
right?
That's my point.
But it's not a punishment.
It's not.
It's like you're actually I think what a lot of people miss out on um is having intentional optionality. You have choices. You are making the intention of prioritizing one thing over the next. It's not that you're missing out on something, it's that you're leaning in harder to something else. And I don't think that there's ever been a consequence in my life. I don't think that missing college football games was a consequence. It was an investment into something that was a higher priority, right? I don't think missing out on a visa was a consequence. It was an investment into a higher priority. People take money and they invest in terms of an ROI. I take time and I make investments with my time with an expectation of an ROI. To your point, I think every human has a crazy superpower. I think most people spend their whole entire life trying to unpackage it or figure it out or find it. I don't even know if I like can say that this is my superpower, but I think that one thing I'm very proud of is that like I have a deep, deep admiration and respect to time. Deep. And I do think that my door is closing today. I do. There's no guarantee I'm waking up tomorrow. There's literally 0% guarantee that I don't. I could. I mean, I'm 39. I could find out tomorrow I'm sick. I could have cancer. I don't even know. I could have cancer right now, sitting here talking to you, not knowing. Highly unlikely, but people who are sick don't get sick overnight. They walk around for a long time with things, right? And so, yeah, I walked my son to school this morning and we held hands. You know what we did? We sang Jack Johnson songs. And the entire time I was recording in my memory bank, and all I can think about is that there will be a day, 1000%, 1,000,000%, that I'll be an old man sitting in this big ass house. It'll be radio silent. There won't be toys everywhere. There'll be no message. I would be praying and wishing and investing everything I had in my life to unwind that time, to get to go back on that trail, to get to go back on that walk, to sing Jack Johnson songs with my 6-year-old son. That to me is a greater success, a greater feeling, a greater moment, a greater accomplishment than anything I will ever do professionally. I deeply believe that in my heart. And tomorrow morning, I pray that he gives me the opportunity to create that memory again.
Just
Like,
like you never know when it's your last. We were laughing with our older two. Our middle guy, Caleb, is now almost 6 feet tall, 15 years old. And Jen, we were walking home from dinner the other night, and she goes, we always talk about you never know when your last time doing something is going to be your last
totally.
time. And a part of this came because she was carrying William, our youngest guy, who's 4 right now, and he's so tiny. And then we were looking at Caleb being like, shit, when was the last time that we ever actually carried you, right? And you never really know when those are. I love just how awake you are to the moment that's there and not missing it. I have my own questions just around what Jack Johnson song. I mean, I'm a deep fan, but you're also really committed to building a workplace and an environment at Maple where this is not just an experience that's exclusive to you as the entrepreneur, the one who
No,
is designing the company and your own experience. And I think a lot of people have been in a workplace before, whether it's the owner or a key team leader who has, well, one might say, taken advantage of the autonomy they have to construct an experience for themselves. It's not necessarily available to the rest of people in the organization, right? And they've been able to construct their time to align with their values, but have not necessarily constructed an environment where that's possible for everybody. I even remember connecting with Lauren on your team, well, it's years ago now, and just learning from her so candidly about how committed you are to making sure that everybody can has that. And not only are you guys building a product that's really helpful for families, but I think you're also building a product of a company that's very good for families, like for people who are working for you and with you on this journey. What are you learning about how to actually do that? Because I talk to a lot of leaders who love the idea of putting family first, but then there's this tension between what the business needs. You've been really diligent of this being a design constraint in the company. What have you been learning that would help other leaders to actually follow through on something that feels right, but is met with the preconceived ideas for why it's not possible?
there's an aspect of me that wants to say candidly it's incredibly hard, but there's an aspect of me that wants to say it's also incredibly easy. So what's hard about it is that you have to have the courage to stay committed to it. So when things are going bad in a business, um, are and by the anyone who's building a business knows building a business is awful. It's painfully, absurdly hard, especially if you're the CEO or the founder, because your job is essentially to be a constant problem solver. So there's pockets in the business that are doing well. You don't get to be in those pockets. You're always in the hardest, darkest, most painful pocket of the business. And so when things are going wrong, people oftentimes out of fear want to identify why it's going wrong, and they want to revert back to systems that have historically worked well. It is hard to have the discipline to build the future. Um, I genuinely believe that what Maple stands for as a company is so multifaceted, but to your point, um, and I deeply believe this in how I live my life, and I deeply believe this in what we stand for as a company, is that we respect the fact that truly at the end of the day, when you're saying goodbye to your family, you're not thinking about the businesses you built. You're not thinking about that one good investment. You're not thinking about that stock trade you made. You're not thinking about those things. You're wishing that you had more time with your family. Any regret about life, any regret about life at the end is singular. As a company, for people to be able to do their best work at Maple, we don't want to be a factor in that regret. We don't want to be people to be wishing that they had spent more time with their family, that they had shown up for their kids' practices, that they had wished that they showed up better in their marriage, and that Maple played a role in them not being able to do that. We
Hmm.
believe in fluidity and ushering into an era with high trust, extraordinary high trust. Um, People can continue to put their family first for people to live an incredibly fulfilled life for what they do for their family, but also for people to participate and be intellectually challenged in the workforce. And it's easy to say, hey, put your family first. It's hard. If Maple fails, I won't change course. I'm committed all the way of trying to figure this out in terms of creating a remote experience. And I do believe that we're going to succeed as a business. And we're going to continue to trust that our team will make up for time where they need to get their job done, but they're also not missing surf or soccer or skate or bike or plays or baseball practice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's never happened. I don't want it to happen. And when I see that people are missing kids' shit, is I just softly remind them, I'm not going to their funeral. I am not holding their hand in the end. I am not going to be there at the end of their life. Um, and I don't know, truthfully, Dave, I probably will get a lot of things wrong professionally in my life. I've gotten most things wrong professionally in my life. Um, I don't think I'll regret those bad decisions. I know that I would regret not showing up for my sons, and I just don't expect for me to get a privileged get out of jail free ticket to invest in my children, just
Hmm.
because I have assets or because I run the company or because of whatever. I don't think it should be a privilege for people to put their kids first. I don't think we should make it hard for people to put their kids first. I don't think we should be punishing people for showing up for their families and putting their kids first. I don't know why, as a society, this feels like it's a revolutionary idea to build a workplace where people can be successful at their job and also feel super good about what they're doing at home.
I'm curious. There's definitely the situation where you see somebody not doing the thing that you know they really want to in their hearts in service to the business and reminding them, hey, I'm not going to be at your fucking funeral here. Like, you don't miss those things.
Right.
And no doubt you're modeling that, right? But I'm curious how your approach to accountability has evolved with team members when, for example, they're not maybe meeting expectation in a business, right? And there's that kind of tension that starts to exist. How does the way that you support a team member change, or does it at all, when you're so committed to making sure that that family priority is never compromised, irrespective of what challenge the business might be going through? Like, how's your approach to coaching changed with your team members? Because I feel like that's the slipping point. Like you said, it's like when things are good, it's good, but all of a sudden, when somebody's underperforming or when the business is struggling, it's easy to regress back into something familiar that deviates away from this. What would your,
Well,
yeah, how has that
I
changed
think
or has it at all?
Well, first of all, I think I have changed a lot, which is well, one is I think when you're the founder of a business or you're the ideas guy behind the business, there's a lot of ego involved. And you think like this is my company, these are my ideas. And that language creates a moat between you and everybody else. I learned that the hard
Mm.
way. Maple is not my business. Everyone at Maple is a equal owner in our mission. So when they sign up to join Maple, they're signing up for the mission. We're a mission-oriented business. We just hired somebody, he's a father of a 3-year-old girl. He wanted to be at Maple for the mission. He wants to be an owner and a participant of that mission. We're not focusing on our market cap. We're focusing on the progress of our mission. People show up differently when they know that the mission is at stake. It's not just that the company is at stake, it's that the mission is at stake. And making all parents' lives easier for us as a company is not just about the products that we build and ship to the market, but it's our philosophical belief in terms of how people should be supported in living their life. So you have
Right.
somebody
Love
like
that.
Lauren, who we've spoken about, or you have somebody like my co-founder Mike, who has a son, or David, who has 3 children. When you talk about these people who have children and that their parents, they get it. They understand what does it look like if Maple doesn't succeed? What happens when people are cheering against us? There's people out there who outspokenly believe that people need to go back to their cubicles, work 45 hours a week, commute for 2 hours every single day, yada, 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 yada. And we're the absolute opposite of that take. We
Opposite.
believe people should live where they think that their family will thrive. They should not be commuting and wasting time with their family. Uh, Commute your kids to school. Walk your commute should be walking your children to school, not sitting in the Bay Bridge and sitting in gridlock traffic for an hour and a half. We believe that people should work a solid 40-hour a week because we need as much time per week, but with the flexibility of navigating that time so they can also go to practice, cook the dinners, do what they need to do to be there to support their family. We are in a fluid state of belief. And so I think that one of the biggest changes has been, quite simply, I don't believe that I singularly own Maple. I believe I have a role inside of a company and I'm a participant alongside myself, my team, my investors, my advisors, my board members, my peers like yourself, people who believe in this. Like, people are a part of Maple without even being at Maple, right? And so, like, it's about just being completely flat and realizing that at the end of the day, my title is not CEO, my title is father, and I'm in the trenches with every other parent that I'm linking arms with. I'm linked arms with mothers and daughters and sisters and brothers. I'm linked arms with people who are trying to represent their family, not people who are trying to protect their job title,
Wow,
right?
like it's as soon as
This type of
you, yeah, as soon as you explain that and you start to evolve the context of which you're interacting and see your role in all of this, it fundamentally changes what an accountability conversation really is. Because it's not about you working for me or not doing that for me or
no,
for this company, which is mine. It is so the gravitational pull towards all of that is fundamentally different when it is mission centric, but also something where, based on the makeup of your team, it's not just people who are contributing to a mission. They are in the mission themselves. They are
are
a
the mission.
benefactor of said
They are the
mission, right? They
benefactor.
are the
That's what I'm
mission.
saying is that, like, I think the secret sauce to Maple is we're a one of a billion company because we are all on this mission together, and the mission, we are fighting for truth because there's some people on this team, and privately some of the best conversations I've ever had are people at Maple who are like, I'm here so that my children have it easier than I had it.
Yeah.
This company has to succeed so that my children have it easier 15 years from now than I have it right now. And so, like, it's such a crazy investment when you think of it through this lens of, like, people are at Maple not because of a market cap. People are not at Maple because of, we've hired people who don't even care what their title is. They don't care. We never talk about titles at Maple, right? These people are here, these incredible individuals, these incredible investors, these incredible partners, because there is a fundamental belief that people who are doing their life's work deserve a better opportunity in playing field to do their life's work. That's at home with the software we built. That's at the workplace based on the culture. That's at a governmental level in terms of the lack of support. That's us being outspoken against the norms. That's us taking a contrarian take that like selling, your job as a CRM sales rep is never going to matter more at the end of your life than it's going to be for being a father, a husband, a brother, an uncle. Those are the things that matter. And I think when everyone buys into that, it's every day we show up and like, how do we keep this thing going?
Yeah.
How do we
Yeah.
stay alive? How do we push the business? How do we keep this thing going? And, I just think at the end of the day, I'm super blessed to, even in the hardest of weeks and the hardest of times, to have the opportunity to try, to be alongside these people and try. And I really don't think that they work for me. I think I'm participating alongside of them working on the mission. And I think everyone at Maple feels the exact same way.
Love that. Love that. Well, it's what a meaningful evolution in yourself that has supported creating that. Brilliant. Um, your own family right now, what's been working really well for you personally? I mean, you've decorated your life in such a way where I can tell by even the stories you share about going to school in the morning and no doubt being there for those kind of critical moments that you've constructed a way of living where you have high quantities of high quality time with your kids. I can imagine there's a lot of emotional availability, which is so important in those doors closing. As you kind of mentioned earlier, in building secure attachment and a really deep, genuine, intimate connection with your kids.
Yes.
You've done a great job setting that up. Aside from the way you've orchestrated yourself and your team such that they can experience, what else is working really, really well for your family right now? And your kids, again, just remind us of the age of 6-year-old, right? You were
Should
just
be
mentioned, or
six.
five, almost six.
It'll be six in a couple weeks. I'm not ready to roll it up just yet, but yeah, six, soon to be
Yeah, five,
six.
five, five, five.
Yeah. And a 3.5-year-old.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned, 30s and 40s. There's a lot in there. Two under five. There's a lot in there too, and you're starting to kind of breach that threshold. Not yet, but what's been
Yeah.
working really well for you and your wife and the family?
Well, again, I think that there's um a couple things. One of them we've kind of touched on, which is like I do believe with a deep level of certainty, that at the end of my life, this will be the chapter of life I miss most. Um, and if I'm wrong and it's the next chapter, then I'm going to continue to pretend like this is the chapter that I'm going to cherish the most. And because I think that it allows for me to show up and turn the temperature down when things are really, really hard. Um, I'm going to miss every aspect of this. I'm going to miss being tired. I'm going to miss getting up early. This morning, both my boys came in around 5 a.m. They both got into bed with us, and I had both of my boys on me. I was awake. I'm tired. I'd like to sleep, but like, I'm not, how much more of that do I get?
Yeah.
Like how much more of that am I going to get? I literally was laying there thinking like maybe a couple more years with my 6-year-old. When he's 10, is he going to want to come into bed and cuddle me? I don't know. I hope so, but like, I don't know. So I think just like really believing deeply that this is all that my whole life is being made up right now. The highest pinnacle of my experience here on earth as a human, the best physical, spiritual, emotional experience is right now. And why would I blunder that? The second thing that I think has always been like a really critical thing is that like, my wife and I have been together for a long time. We're celebrating our 19th year this year. And I think when these things feel really intense, and like there's all this going on, there's all this pressure, it's build this company, it's stand up for this company, like it's not just another business. It's that there's a lot on the line for all the things that we've talked about. And I don't make it that it's just about me at Maple, it's us at Maple. She's vested in this as well, and she's vested in everything that we're doing in our life. And so I treat her not just as my soulmate and my wife, but really my co-founder to everything that we're creating together. And that's our sons, it's our home, it's our little mini empire that we're trying to build. It's how I show up for her and her philanthropic efforts and her fundraisers and her events and not complaining and not moaning and not be, but we just show up together. And just staying on that team, I think, has always just been like a really magic experience to get to really not feel independent. I
Hmm.
don't feel in my life. I have a very high dependency on my children and my wife to bring me purpose. I have no shame in that. I don't need for someone to think I'm some big strong man. I am a dependent man. I need my family. Um, and I think having the gratitude for that has served me personally incredibly well and has kept me very, very, very in touch with my experience here on Earth and what that represents and what that looks like. Um, and
You
then
mentioned
again, man,
earlier that there's breaking, right? Like at some point we
there's
break.
breaking.
I I personally feel like I really embody a lot of what you're talking about as far as proudly being dependent.
Yeah,
And I will be honest that for me, when the load gets really tough and the weight really starts to pick up, before I really break, I find myself going into this avoidancy, like wanting to just like pull away on my own and take on more. And I can always tell that is when I'm starting to get close, and I really need to, as you mentioned earlier, kind of like just re-strengthen a few things. An example for me, just a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I'm going to go away for 3 or 4 days just in solitude as a practice that works for me, just to kind of reorient myself to my gratitude, reorient myself to the way that I know I I'm committed to living. But as the weight gets higher, I find myself just pulling away from that a little bit. And I've noticed in my life that every almost, I would say like 9 or I don't know, 15 to just around a year, months, I kind of go through these like swells where I find
yeah.
myself feeling internally pulling away from that, even if my behaviors might not necessarily speak to that yet. But I know. I'm curious, what does your process look like for coming back to this way of living? Or do you feel like the way that you've been able to integrate your work life and your family and engaging your partner in this has actually been so successful that you're finding yourself having to do that very seldomly?
Well, I mean, what is success, my brother? You know, success is not giving up. It's just continuing to go for it. I think
Mm-hmm.
that success, for some reason, I think people will look at as like this like completion state or like you've acquired something. Like success to me feels very like done. I mean, for like it's we are a work in progress. For me, really, I've arrived at my newest version of like as I think about effort, success is literally not giving up. If I continue every single day to make an effort, that's a success. Um, I think in a lot of ways, maybe in a lot of ways, I think that there's some people who uh, build insanely great habits for themselves. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they go regularly, or they figure out what they need to do to recheck back in, or they meditate, or they pray, or everyone has like this ritual that kind of keeps them going, keeps them on the rails.
Mm-hmm.
I think when things get really hard, which is almost every day at some point, I try to actually just take a step back and remind myself that I am absurdly lucky.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that, like, I don't have any real problems. I'm alive. My kids are healthy. I'm not burying anybody this week. My wife and I are
Mm-hmm.
good, loyal to one another. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
have real. My mother was a waitress. My father was a car salesman. My mom rode the bus to work. They were worried about whether they can feed their kids every day. That's not my problems. I'm not, and there's a lot of people in this world that are facing those very difficult challenges, and that creates a tremendous amount of cloudiness when things don't feel so good, when things feel like really actually real life hard. I don't have I have a tremendous amount of privilege, and I'm very well aware of that because I've been on the other end of the spectrum, and I've been sleeping on the floor, and I've been on food stamps, and I've been evicted, and I've been all the other things that makes me feel like things are really, 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 really hard. There's nothing really, really, really hard. I'm just
I
trying to
love
go a
that.
little,
I love
right? We're trying to go a little bit further in life, but we're not dealing with really hard things. You're not getting off this call and going to the hospital and checking in on your son. You're not wondering whether you can feed your son breakfast tomorrow morning. You're not working 80 hours a week so that you can keep your lights on. It's like, I think sometimes there's some humility in understanding that the work that I am doing, the life that I am living, these are all privilege challenges. They're not real challenges. That's not life or death. And I think that the second you stop taking everything so seriously and you realize that I would, in 1 millisecond, if my children were sick, none of these problems would at all fucking matter. Nothing that I'm facing actually matters. It's a least problem. And then someday the problems that I'm facing, some other young guy or young woman is going to face these exact same problems. I'm not living with the outcome of this forever. You know what I mean? I think that ownership is borrowed. I think problems are borrowed. I think the universe issues you things in small doses for whatever particular reason. Hard times don't necessarily last forever. Good times don't necessarily last forever either. Everything I have borrowed. I don't own anything. So like the things that are in my control are good, you know? So I think that there's an aspect of like, yeah, when I'm feeling like, oh shit, this is getting really, really hard, I just remind myself, this isn't, people would pray for this shit. I prayed for these problems. I prayed for this shit right now. So it's like, it's all good. And I just get centered and I come back and I'm like, I'm being issued exactly what I asked for.
it.
You know what I mean?
I do. I certainly do. Speaking of being lucky, I feel super lucky to be able to spend some time with you today to kind of understand the inner world of how you think about, I would go as far as to say, quite simply, life and your opportunity, the opportunity you have. And no doubt there's wonderful landscapes that you find yourself exploring, be it building this business and the one before and the one next, and building your family and raising the kids where they are now and where they're going next, and enjoying the 20th year ahead of you here with your wife and many, many more. But at the core of this, it's been really neat just to see the common denominators that you bring into all of those things today, which is just your real blessed perspective on this opportunity to live and to be here. So thank you for that. You know, we've, as a family, have been really lucky to use Maple over the last number of years. And we've now gone through another reboot on it, having got settled into Spain and like needing to kind of reacclimatize our own systems of living here. We didn't spend any time today talking about Maple for families who are looking for their lives to be a bit easier and really connect with your way of living, your way of leading. Like, how can they start to learn more about the mission that Maple is on? Where are the different spaces and places that, you know, ambitious leaders, I would say, and ambitious parents can really starts to marinate in your way of thinking a little bit more, but also starts to evolve how their family operates to have more of the space that you have been so uh, great at illustrating in the way that you've kind of created it for yourself.
Well, first, I'm happy we connected today. I always enjoy our chats. I think you're a very soulful human, and I think the work that you're doing for yourself and your community and your family is very honorable. And so I appreciate you wanting to even share a coffee with me today. I'm humbled about that. Um, I think at the end of the day, the success on Maple first starts with a check-in on your values and your purpose. I don't think Maple will ever work for any family if being aligned does not matter. I don't think Maple will work for any family if like co-ownership of the home is not a priority, right? So often people are like, how do you get my partner to use this? I'm like, we can't get your partner to use this. They have to want to establish a better system at home, because fundamentally our job is to build software that makes it easier, incrementally easier to share and co-own family responsibilities. That is the baseline of our product, is that you're building a family together. There's responsibilities the same way that building a business requires responsibilities and ownership. We build software that makes it incredibly easy to co-own and to participate inside of what your family needs to get done to continue to thrive and succeed. But at the end of the day, again, it just fundamentally starts with like, do you believe that your family needs a change, or that you would like things to be easier? And is everyone on the same page about wanting to participate in that? Because a lot of our conversation today has been, how do you trust stakeholders to work inside of Maple at the company? And that question applies to any business, right? If someone's not doing the end of the deal, there's friction, there's resentment, there's frustration, there's lack of trust. I think that the harsh truth that many people don't want to face is that there's an incredibly big difference between being in a relationship with somebody and being in a partnership with somebody. And in a relationship with somebody, you're dating and you're together and things are fun and you have some sort of baseline. You have relationships with your friends that you just simply aren't intimate with, right? You guys go get beers, you have activity, life is good. When you're in a partnership with somebody, there's a different fundamental commitment to working together. And that switch between relationship and partnership, if you're fortunate enough to make that switch, typically is a needed requirement to co-raise children. And, I don't know where people can follow along. I post about it, I guess, on LinkedIn, and I try to live a very authentic life. I think that all these platforms are just really weird marketing tools in some way. And so I think finding people who are authentically in it, like yourself, who are working with their partner to raise children, who are willing to share their stories about how hard it is, but how good it feels, like being around other parents. There is no fucking industry knowledge owner of parenting. There's not. We're all in it. If there's an industry knowledge owner, leader, thought leader, framework, we're all in it. Everyone's got different types of kids. Everyone has different types of relationships. Everyone has different types of skill sets. And I think just having like authentic, real relationships with other peers and encouraging a stronger belief system about like, you're not going to regret these challenges. You're not going to regret taking these things on, right? I've never met anyone who sold a company and regretted the hard work.
Right.
They're like, holy shit, that was hard, but wow, the outcome was great. The great outcome is that when you're 60 and you have adult children and they're doing amazing things with their life, that's what you're proud about. That's what you're proud about. You're proud when your kid hits that pitch at T-ball or whatever. That's what you're proud about. There's no greater feeling than your kid thriving. Comes with a lot of hard work, though. Comes with a lot of hard times, a lot of exhaustion. It comes with a lot of, investment.
Love it. Well, I think bringing this full circle, I think the only chance you kind of regret that is when you let the door close, right?
The door will
And
close. Not that you let it
the
close.
door will close. Yeah, sure.
The door will close. You don't
The door
get
closed,
to. That's
and you
the
missed that moment. Well
painful
said.
part, right?
Well
Is that
said.
like you don't control when the door swings shut. That's why you don't get to ask that question. When was the last time they carried you? At some point, the universe just closed that door,
That's right.
right? So that's why you have to be all in every single day, because you don't know when the universe is shutting that door. Today could be the last day, right? So it's like you have to, when you're in the room and the door is there, you got to just charge it. You got to go hard for it. You got to take advantage of it, because when the door shuts, you don't get to go back into that room. you know?
I do.
Anyways,
Well, your zest for life, your zest for leading at home is absolutely contagious. I love spending time with you. Today was no exception. So let us find an opportunity to meet again, to
please.
connect, to learn what's moving through you at that point, and continue to compare notes. But thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Best of luck in celebrating the birthday here in a couple of weeks in front of you, and a really
Mhm.
exciting milestone in your partnership with your wife
Yeah.
too that is coming up.
Thanks so much, Dave. I appreciate it, buddy. Wishing you my very best.